That is a clear setup. Now, you might say these are just two lovers just running their mouths. He's now bringing his office work into it. He's now talking about his government power and the mechanisms by which they can use that power to stop the president. The DOJ informed Congress why they publicly released the messages, and Thrust and the lawyer, Lisa, and their relationship came into the public eye because they were indicting each other like Fanny and Nathan. It's not up to the court to decide whether to end this career after a long, unblemished record of outstanding service to the agency. Judge, this is perverse. You can't do this in a public court record. It's almost like borderline intercourse with him. Peter Strzok, the FBI lover who was texting Lisa Page saying about President Trump in the 2016 election, "We will stop him." He got fired, he sued, and now he lost his lawsuit. Oh no. And he was very unhappy with what happened to him. And so what he did is filed a complaint against Merrick Garland. Originally it was against Bill Barr. And this was back in 2019. He submitted this 27-page complaint from Peter Strzok, and his FBI lover, of course, plays a role in this. But he sued Attorney General Bill Barr. And he said, you know, I'm very special. I'm a special agent with the FBI. I'm incredible. And I've been so special for 25 years. I have a bunch of stickers on my refrigerator to show my mom. In June 2018, the FBI wanted to fire this guy because of his text messages that he had written. This is from his lawsuit he's suing. He's saying this. Just because he expressed his political opinions about the 2016 presidential election. And now, President Trump. The proposal to discharge Strzok identified other people, and they say it's illegal. He had free speech. You can't fire him for this. Then he was fired. August 9th, 2018. FBI said, get out of here. The discharge was effective immediately. Then they said, we got disparaged. You said a bunch of bad things about me, and you can't say those things because I have protected political speech. And so I can text my lover about stopping the incoming president using our agency to do it, to frame him like they did with Crossfire Hurricane and try to insurrect the actual victory. And Obama was behind it, meeting with Comey, meeting with Clapper, and the rest of them. So this action, this is being sued back in 2019 by Peter Strzok. He says, my constitutional rights have been violated. In fact, let me back up and show you, because he also included the text messages that are at issue here. He's saying, yeah, this is what we actually said. So here, February 12th, 2016, he's texting other people, including Lisa Page. Lisa, GA, is the FBI attorney in question, which was his lover, says, oh, Trump's abysmal. I keep hoping the charade will end and people will just dump him. She sends that. GA says, God, Trump is a loathsome human. This is during the primaries. But Peter responds, yet he may win. Gonna be good for Hillary. That didn't work out for them. And she says it is, like Hillary's just going to mop the floor with Donald Trump. Would he be a worse president than Ted Cruz? Says Strzok. Trump? She says, yes, I think so. I'm not sure. OMG, Trump's an idiot, said Strzok. He's awful, said Lisa. Strzok says on June 11th, they fully deserve to go and demonstrate the absolute bigoted nonsense of Trump. Why? For wanting to stop illegal immigration? FBI says, you F and cheating MFing Russians. Bastards. I hate them. She says, I'm sorry. Me too. And F the cheating MFing Russians. Bastards. I hate them. July 18, 2016. So they're thinking that the Russians are behind this. They set that up. Now, then he says, Trump is a disaster. I have no idea how destabilizing his presidency would be. It was great until you guys unleashed COVID. August 6, 2016, he says, I really like this. Quoting, Trump appears to have no ability to experience reverence, which is the foundation for any capacity to admire or serve anything bigger than self. To want to learn about anything beyond self. To want to know and deeply honor the people around you. Stupid platitudes that are meaningless, okay? You expect to read that like in a philosophy book. But he's talking to this woman. He's like, I'm going to be poetic. Maybe she'll let me touch her tonight. August 8th, 2016. Trump is like coming up in the polls. They're hitting the panic button and starting to freak out. Trump's not ever going to become president, right? She says, right? No, he's not. Will, stop it, baby. August 15th. Peter Strzok says, I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in the DD's office, the Deputy Directive Office, that there's no way that Trump gets elected. But I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40, okay? That is a clear setup. Now, you might say these are just two lovers just running their mouths. He's now bringing his office work into it. He's now talking about his government power and the mechanisms by which they can use that power to stop the president, Trump. August 15th, 2016. That's an abusive office. This dude belongs in jail. Now, we'll see if that ultimately happens, but maybe not. Statute of limitations and a bunch of other things have expired, I think, for some of the allegations or some of the claims that could be made about what happened all the way back during that time. And so he may be out of the woodwork, but he sued and now he has lost. Peter Strzok crushed by Judge Amy Berman Jackson. And this is a lefty judge. We've covered a lot of her work here. She managed the Clinton sock drawer case. She handled a bunch of other matters that we've talked about here, including some recent matters about Trump's injunctions, firings of certain people. I think it was the CFBP, but other things. But she's been around for a long time, no fan of Trump or the administration. And she says Peter loses. Here's what she writes. And of course, she's going to give him a little bit of extra glaze. Plaintiffs Peter Strzok, who served with distinction as an FBI special agent for 25 years, was fired. FBI fired him in August 2018. So he sued. And the reason of the firing was because they discovered thousands of text messages that Strzok and a government attorney exchanged on their FBI-issued phones that we just read, including many that contained derogatory comments about the very people they were investigating, Trump, or Trump's campaigned people. Now, at that time, Strzok was leading the politically sensitive investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of the private email server. And they, of course, they covered that whole thing up. James Comey changed the memo, essentially, to change it from grossly negligent. He's like, oh, that's criminal. If it's grossly negligent, she's going to jail. But it's not grossly negligent, okay? It's just extremely careless. Remember that crap? Just perverting the words. And also was investigating Crossfire Hurricane, which was made up to try to stop Trump. Both Strzok and Lisa Page were also working with Robert Mueller. They were just hatchet people over for the DOJ and the FBI. With the investigation into potential Russian interference, which was all fake, okay? These are operatives whose sole job is to wage political lawfare from inside the government. Now, given the concerns that the set of disparaging messages had been discovered, he was immediately removed from both investigations and all operational duties while they did an exam. Several months later, news of his removal from the special counsel team was reported in the press. The DOJ informed Congress why they publicly released the messages, and Thrust and the lawyer, Lisa, and their relationship came into the public eye because they were indicting each other like Fannie and Nathan. This provoked a firestorm of criticism of the FBI because, of course, it was a political attack. They were openly talking about it on FBI phones. That's the type of arrogance they have. The Office of the Inspector General also issued its mid-year investigation, including into Strzok's messages. It concluded that while there was no indication that bias had tainted the inquiry, it's ridiculous. We live in such a scam government. They investigate themselves and they find they did nothing wrong. We just read the messages. He said we need a backup plan, an insurance policy to stop Trump, but no bias in any of his work. He set that aside when he was launching the investigations. They had demonstrated extremely poor judgment and a gross lack of professionalism. That's all they get. The FBI's damaged reputation for neutral fact-finding had been obliterated. The matter then fell within the purview of OPR, and they said, okay, at least fire him. In the notice, they advised Peter that they had concluded their investigation, and based on a preponderance of the evidence, like 51% more likely than not, the allegations were substantiated. You got to be fired. It said the assistant director makes the final decision. He availed himself. He wanted to be heard. He says, you can't fire me. I need to rig more elections and try to take out my more political opponents. They said that no matter what happened, no matter what you say to me, the FBI director could still fire you. So then after the meeting, he transmitted a proposed last chance agreement. He's like, please don't fire me. I want to continue to rig things. Says he offered to accept the lesser sanction. Just don't fire me, okay? I'll take a 60-day suspension and you can demote me. I won't appeal that. And I could be fired if I get any infraction in the future again, okay? So he's like begging, just keep me on board. After consideration of all of this, the assistant director said no. And while termination would have been warranted, the appropriate penalty she reverses and says it's actually 60 days and demotion. She told them that, yeah, actually, I think we should keep him for 60 days. That sounds appropriate. And so what if he was exercising extremely, unprofessionalism and whatever else they said? That's okay. He's really sorry now. She informed the agency's deputy director of how she wanted to proceed. He said she'd think it over. And the next morning, he informed her, actually, I'm going to overrule you. Sorry. He's going to be fired. Shout out to that dude. David Bowditch did the right thing. She tried to keep this dude because they just love themselves. Nobody can do any wrong if you're in the FBI and you're working for the FBI's interest, which in this case was to stop the president. They agreed that the letters announcing their separate determinations would be delivered. He'd get them both. And they were. So he says, well, you can't fire me. The original recommendation was to keep and just suspend me for 60 days. Bunch of stuff got filed. He sued. Now, the Privacy Act claim was later dismissed and discovery is now complete. And so we've got both sides filing motions for summary judgment just so that they can win. Now, she says it's undisputed undisputed that Strzok served his country with distinction for 25 years. No, it is disputed, okay? That's why he got fired, because he was acting with disrepute. And he was promoted several times. Stickers for his refrigerator to show his mama. Prior to the events, he was among the FBI's leading counterintelligence experts. Actually, he was an idiot because he thought that the Russians actually manufactured fake claims about the Russians stealing the election. It's not even accurate at all. So how can he be considered an expert? Widely recognized as extremely intelligent. It's like, good golly, Judge, like you inviting him over for dinner too? It is important to underscore, but we're not being asked here whether termination was appropriate. It's not up to the court to decide whether to end this career after a long, unblemished record of outstanding service to the agency. Judge, this is perverse. You can't do this in a public court record. It's almost like borderline intercourse with him, saying to address the lack of professionalism and all the things, they can still fire you. But the court has no say about whether firing can actually happen. Well, I can't substitute my judgment for that of the agency. I can't say that their justification was wrong and you have to be reinstated. Reasonable minds can differ. And so the sole question that can be asked here is whether this termination is in alignment with the Constitution. They interviewed, they deposed everybody. They went after the deputy AG, the then director of the FBI. They were trying to get a president. And after a thorough review, there is no genuine dispute of material fact that would preclude the entry of summary judgment in the defendant's favor, the government's favor. He sued Merrick Garland. Of course, now that's inherited by the current DOJ. And so you lose. When assessing your First Amendment claim, the court must balance your interest in speaking versus the employer's interest in making sure that you're not saying those things. The court considered all of these things. We considered his rank, his particular position, and we find that his interest in expressing his political opinions on his FBI phone is outweighed by the FBI's interest in avoiding the appearance of bias. Yeah, so that's interesting, Judge. But you still say he's like unblemished and incredible, and he's got 25 stickers on his refrigerator. Also, while plaintiff's memo marshals considerable indignation because he's just crying, he cannot point to evidence that supports the conclusion that he was treated more harshly than other people, saying the situation was unprecedented, okay? There were no comparators. Nobody else was talking about insurance policies for Trump. Now, his due process claim is also misrepresenting the facts. Go figure. One gets past the rhetoric that comes from him, and we just saw that in his poetry to Lisa, and considers the undisputed factual record. It becomes clear there is no evidence that this Strzok entered into a contract with Will. He didn't have property interests, and he could have been fired. And so for these reasons, the motions for summary judgment from the government will be granted and win, and Peter's motion will be denied. The full memo has been docketed under seal, and we can't see it because there's a lot more juicy bits in there, but the judge, Amy Berman Jackson, has now found Peter Strzok, you lose. Your case has now been adjudicated via summary judgment, and we'll see, maybe he'll text his lover about this and say, hey, baby, we failed. We'll see if that happens. We'll keep our eye on it and see if anything else comes into this. Of course, he is a co-conspirator in an ongoing conspiracy to weaponize the government against President Trump. And maybe in a RICO indictment or some broader conspiracy indictment, we can reach on back into his criminality and bring it in to the current age. We'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do.